Okay, Bronwyn, do you want to just intro yourself and just tell us a little bit about who you are and where you are today in your life?
Yeah, so I'm Bronwyn, born and bred in Porirua in Wellington and currently live in Wainuiomata. I have 4 children, so 3 boys and a girl, 5-year-old twins and a 12 and a 10-year-old, and my partner. Where I'm at in life, today, living for today and embracing today. Just take my glasses off, but where I am, I've got an incredible partner who loves me, loves all our kids. We mahi hard, always loved my mahi, regardless of what it is. It's something I was taught growing up, you work hard for what you want or what you get in life. Kids all at school, baby on the way, so life's good. I see myself as blessed and grateful. It hasn't been easy, and it's not easy still.
Blended whānau.
Blended whānau, yeah. So, it's been a learning curve, I think, from what I've been through in the past to coming together with somebody. I guess the first year of our relationship, I always doubted my actions and the consequences of my actions because of what I'd been through in a previous relationship. But yeah, that's where I'm at in life at the moment, and
awesome.
Just loving it. Yeah, it's amazing friends and whānau around me.
Main support.
Yeah, awesome. Really good support.
And what makes you want to share your story on CWK today?
I've always wanted to share my journey, and I guess over the last probably 2 years I have shared my journey in parts with different people, more so friends. A lot of my friends live in or have lived some type of abuse, and when they're going through it, or they've experienced trauma or experiencing emotions or what people see as emotions, it's just been, I've shared parts of my journey in hope that they can see they're not the only one going through it, but that you can come through it and manage it. It'll never go away, but you can share your experience and how you deal with it and how you get through it.
Do you think that's pretty fucking trippy how many people can actually relate?
It's sad that so many people can relate to it, but at the same time, a lot of people look at me funny when I say I wouldn't change a thing that I've gone through. I wouldn't change one thing. I would go through everything I've been through to be where I am today. And I say that not only to my children, to my parents, to my close friends, but I'm a strong believer, and if we didn't go through everything we've been through, we wouldn't be who we are today. And there's people who have contributed to that, whether it be in a positive way or a not so positive way.
Even the negative teaches you lessons.
Sometimes the negative teaches you more. And it makes you stronger, it makes you more resilient. But I think I'm a strong believer, and you have to go through the good and the bad to learn and to grow. And a lot of people will, say to me, "Oh, you're happy, you don't have any growth, but you grow every day." My partner and I we've been together 18 months, and we've achieved a lot. We've been, shared a lot, and we are aware of each other's experiences in the past. But I also believe that we have gone through that and come to a place where we can mutually understand each other and grow together. But I also say to people, it's important that you still grow
as an individual.
Yeah, as an individual. Like for so many years, I relied on my happiness in my previous relationship.
Yeah.
Whereas now,
like, is that looking for like validation and shit from others,
Yeah.
instead of looking within yourself?
Yeah. And I lost myself. You know, my eldest boy. I grew up in a home where I had two parents. You know, my dad worked really hard. My mum looked after us kids as we grew up. She worked hard. Like they worked hard. They enjoyed life. They had friends, drunk, all of that kind of stuff. My dad has very strong beliefs about things like the drug world, gangs. He was brought up in a very Pākehā family where you live what a lot of people would say the white man's way. My mum came from a Māori family, you know, a lot of gang affiliations, gang involvement, gang associations. But growing up, we didn't have much to do with that. I knew who my whānau were.
Yeah.
But we weren't involved in that growing up. We went to school, we came home, my parents worked hard, we spent time with grandchildren, with grandparents, and our other cousins.
So you were kind of sheltered from that life, you reckon?
Yep, absolutely. And went to intermediate and primary school around Porirua. And I've got one sibling, and growing up he was, I don't know if you'd say diagnosed, but he was told he was ADHD. So he was put through a part of the system, and my parents were challenged in ways where it got to a point, and I said to my parents, no, cool, I'll go to boarding school. So I went off to boarding school in the hopes that my parents could focus on my brother. And I think before that I was into swimming. I was swimming at national level, right into my sports and everything, and then went off to boarding school. And that's when my relationship, not broke, but my relationship with my parents became distant, distant. So I didn't feel, I knew I had parents that loved me, that would do anything for me. Not anyone can just put their kids through a private school. But at the same time, I felt like I wasn't getting that love.
Yeah. Oh, true.
I was a bigger, what some people would say is a bigger person in comparison to my peers, much bigger. So I was bullied at college a lot for my size, and still right into my sports. I never cared what people thought. I was always open, happy, bubbly, doing me, experienced life, spirit of adventure, going away for sports. And then towards the end of my college, sixth form, I got bullied so badly that I ran away. And it was at that point that I had not so much seeked out, but I'd become aware of who my whānau were. And I reached out to a cousin one night, and I'd been sent to what they used to call sick bay at college. Yeah, for being bullied. So, you're bullied, you go move away and get isolated from everyone else. So I chucked 4 layers of clothes on, and in Masterton there's a place called Solway, and it's literally a tin shed. And I remember jumping the back fence. I never ran away from home. I never touched drugs. I'd, heard about it. Never drunk. I was getting principal's awards and all of this. I was shitting myself. Ran away, and my cousin put all her babies in the car from Porirua. She came over and picked me up and took me back, and my mum rang her on the way back and just said, have you seen my baby? She said, no, auntie, I haven't. I was sitting right behind her. And we got back to Poriroa and my mum was there, and my cousin said, nah, she's here because this is what's happening. And much to my dad's disgust that I was with whānau who were gang affiliated, I stayed with her. I made the decision to stand my ground. But it was at that point that I was seeking validation and love, because I thought I wasn't. That was the point. I look back now and I realise I thought I wasn't worthy enough of myself. So the love that people were giving me didn't really mean much to me. Got involved with a group of boys, I guess you could say at the time, who probably 3 or 4 to this day I call very close brothers. Don't see each other much, don't talk to each other much, but I know that if I needed anything I could, call on them. So for a few years there I associated myself with them, started to get into drugs. It was never, I'll admit, like, I never touched things like meth, but I did become a pretty big pot smoker. Never really drunk. It was always the texture of the ATM, the tinnies kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I still worked. And then I met my children's father. And for me, I'd met this guy who had seen me, and at that time I was bigger, I was like probably about 130 kilos, so I was quite chunky. But at the time, because I was always conscious of my looks, but my brothers loved me the way I was.
Yeah.
Yes, they mucked around and, we used to, sit there and headbutt and waste each other and all of that kind of stuff. But it was when I met my kid's father, I thought, oh, this is the best thing that's ever fucking happened.
Man of your dreams, eh?
Yeah, man of my dreams, someone that, because I'd never had a male relationship that was intimate, because my boys were my boys. I was one of the boys. So fell in love with this, what I thought was love, with this guy, and I soon found out that I was pregnant. And that was only a couple of months after I'd met him. And I was adamant, I grew up with a mum and dad together, that my son was going to have that same thing. And it wasn't until probably about 12, that's a lie. While I was pregnant, there were signs there and I never saw it. Red flags. But because I was always looking at the positives, that's just who I am. I'll look at the positives. If you throw negative shit at me, I'll always look at the better side of a person first.
Do you feel as though maybe you looked past those red flags because you still wanted that ideal thing of having a mum and a dad for your child?
Yeah. And I think as well, because I was so isolated growing up, I didn't grow up around that kind of stuff. Yeah, mum and dad argued, but my dad never pushed my mum around. My dad never... Yeah, my dad and mum had their moments, as you all do.
Yeah.
But I wasn't open to that kind of behaviour. So to me, I didn't know it was a red flag. So it was happening and I just thought...
What kind of things were happening?
Is this normal? Like, I just thought it was normal. So just things like being isolated from being able to hang out with my friends being judged. And I just thought, oh yeah, okay, sweet, I'll change who I am then. And that's what it came down to. Slowly started changing who I was to suit this man that I thought was
The bee's knees.
Yeah. To, you know, just to make him happy. And then years went on, and I found that I was living my life and doing things to make him happy and not myself. But at that time I didn't know that.
You didn't know, yeah.
Didn't realise that. And then in 2013 I lost grandparents. I lost 2 out of my 3 grandparents within months of each other, and that was from health conditions and being unwell and being a bigger person. So after I had my son in 2008, and then lost a baby in 2010, kind of went through the motions of losing baby, not really having the father's tautoko and support. So I always did it on my own. Like, I was just very independent. Never shared much with my parents because I was scared that I would that I was a failure to them, because I was associated with all these gang people, and I'd chosen to do things that my dad didn't necessarily approve of. So I always thought, no, I won't share with them.
Yeah.
Mum was pretty cool. She had a pretty cool relationship with all the boys. You know, she'd turn up to parties and pick me up in her jammies, and wouldn't even care if, you know, they were patched. I should tell them where to go, where's my daughter, kind of thing. But my dad, nah. So then I started keeping stuff from both of them. And in 2013 I decided to have a gastric bypass, because I was bigger. I'd obviously lost baby, and I wasn't going to I went to the doctors, and he pretty much said to me, your son's going to bury you within 10 years if you don't look after yourself. I was like, yeah, whatever. I'm still young. You know, I can lose this weight. But for 3 or so years I tried to lose the weight, put more on.
Yeah.
So I, in 2014, I had a gastric bypass, what they call a Rowan.
Yeah.
And it's a full, they pretty much bypass your stomach from this size to this size.
Yeah.
And that was to help give me the foundations, not to lose weight, but to become healthy for my son. And I think that was, for me, at that time, when I made that decision, my ex-husband started to indirectly manipulate me to make me feel like no one else is going to love you the way I love you.
Well, do you think he might have been afraid that you were going to just get this newfound confidence and things like that after you've had this? Because I've had a couple of whānau that have had that same thing, and man, their confidence is like boom.
Yeah, I think as well, and socially, you know, I'll admit, you know, I'd caught him having affairs, and I always went back. Because I'd always had in me, no one's going to love me like he loves me. No one's going to be there for my son like he's going to be there. But living through that, I was lying to my friends, to my whānau. Yeah, I'm happy. I'm all good. But that's because I was so independent and holding my house down, holding my son down, holding my own whānau down, working, that I was oblivious to these red flags, you know. It wasn't physical violence. It was emotional at that point.
Even though you hadn't experienced that with your own upbringing, with your parents and things like that, was there a part of you that knew, like, no, this is fucked up, but again, still holding on to that hope that, you know, fuck, maybe this is just a thing, we can get through this, I don't want to you know, break
every
this
day.
family up?
Every day. Because he was so close with my son. You know, he was a good dad when he was present. But even when he was physically present, he may not have been present.
Yeah.
You know, but I wasn't going to come in and be the one to break that.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want my son growing up resenting me. You know. And I remember when my son was about 2, and we had his family over, and his mum was here from the islands, and to bring someone here from the islands is not easy, you know. And we had his mum here, and I remember coming home from work, getting out of the car, and I'd never experienced physical, you know, violence from an intimate partner. Well, because I'd never had an intimate partner other than him. Yeah, Dad had, you know, we grew up with the belt and stuff, but
Yeah,
hey. And I remember coming in and going into the room, and the first time he gave me hiding, I was like, what the just keep going, bro. Like, I'd rather have this than the emotional and mental manipulation.
What did he do that for?
So we had friends in that family over, and I was like, you can't talk to me like this in front of your family. You shouldn't even be talking to me. So I was already recognising things that weren't right. And I just remember going in the room and closing the door and wanting to take a minute, because I wasn't one to let his whānau see that there were flaws in him. Because I didn't want my whānau, my son, or his whānau seeing this side of him, because to the face of everyone else, he was this awesome guy.
So you were trying to protect his image, really, with his family.
Always, 100%, you know. And just remember going into the room, getting a thwack, and oh, hang on a minute, well, where did that come from, you know? And then just got the full-on bash and screamed out, and his mum came into the room, and his mum had very little English. Oh, please, my son, you know, my son will change. So I let it go.
Yeah.
Then, you know, he started, years after that, he started meeting other women behind my back, and I was oblivious to it, because I would always mahi and do my son and my, you know, whānau and his whānau, and I never faced it. It was there, but I never faced it, and I don't know why. Still to this day, I don't know why. I know part of it is because I didn't want to break my family. Part of it was because I was never accepting of, this is who I am, I love myself for who I am. I didn't know my worth. But then when I decided to have the bypass, I found the strength in me that I never knew I had. Oh yeah, okay, I can get healthy. And for me, it wasn't about losing the weight.
Yeah.
Because I didn't care what people thought. I didn't care. My friends loved me for the way I was. My parents loved me for the way I was. And then every day I just found this new confidence. Started doing boot camps. Found a strength in me that, you know, I never knew existed. It's like, oh, I can squat. Like, hello. I can run. 200 kilos and I can run, you know. And then I fell pregnant with my twins. Not long after, about a year after that. And everything was great. Because he had recognised that this woman has confidence, even though I'd always had confidence in me, I've always spoken my mind, which has always been a strength, or it depends, to be a strength or a weakness. I could start to see he was becoming vulnerable about losing his family. And the mental, you know, and emotional games started getting stronger and stronger. So it would be little things like, oh, the boys are going out tonight, for example, or we're going to go to a whānau gathering. Nah, just stay home. You know, okay, yep, and I didn't see anything else. It was like, no, I'll stay home. Oh, if you go out and do that, you're a bad mum. So I'd stay home. Yeah. So those were the little games.
Psychological manipulation, fucking with your head, really.
Yeah. And that's probably more so when the gaslighting started, really, really strongly. Little things like, because I was losing the weight after I had my twins, I was more confident to, because I was always very tomboy, dress a little bit more feminine. You'll get cold. I remember going out to the pub for the first time together, and for me, if a male looked at me previously, like, hey bro, but the looks were different, and he didn't like that, whereas that was the life I'd been living for all these years with him, with people looking at him, and I was insecure because I was bigger, so that's when he became very, I don't know what word, narcissistic, I guess you could say.
Yeah, hard.
Yeah. And then so we got married.
I feel like he would have been feeling quite threatened, like, because he probably knew that inside you didn't have that much confidence within yourself to be able to stand on your own 2 feet without him.
Yeah.
But then after that, he would have kind of felt like, fucking hell, she could do anything without me. Shit.
Yeah.
How am I going to fucking fuck with her head enough so that she don't fuck off?
Yeah. And I think that's what it was like for him, because he was trying to deal with that. And still at this point, I was still living off his happiness. So if he wasn't happy, I wasn't happy. So then again, I was going away from who I was as a person and trying to be who he wanted me to be. Losing myself.
Yeah.
And because my bros, like the boys, started recognising that change, not so much physically. Like, a couple of them were like, oh, like, we can't call you Gutty anymore, like, because you don't have one. Or, just nicknames that they used to call me, but they could see that the strength that I had was newfound in me. And because they started verbally recognising that, I was, I guess you could say, feeding off that and growing more. So we got married the end of 2017. Made a deal with my dad. He was like, fuck, if you can lose 20 kilos in a year, this is before I chose to have the operation, and keep it off for 2 years, I'll take you, your son, and his father overseas. So at that point, I'd lost half of my weight. I'd lost, just over 100 kilos. So I went from about 203 kilos. And we booked a family trip. Dad booked our family trip to Raro. And he said to my son's father, and the twins obviously, we're going to Raro. Oh, why didn't you just marry her there? He already proposed to her. So I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to get married. I've got kids. Like, this is the life everyone dreams of. But behind the scenes, it was shit. It was toxic.
And your dad didn't know?
He still had no idea.
Yeah.
And I didn't have that confidence to share that with my dad because, again, I didn't want to be a failure. Yeah. And because I didn't want to ruin my kid's father's image.
Yeah, I was just going to say that.
My mum knew that there were things going on because mums know,
Yeah.
Can't lie to my mum. And there were certain people who knew things that he did. But I wasn't open about that. So we went off, got married, came back, and that's when I found out he'd been having an affair. at the end of 2017, start of 2018, and that's when it ramped up. The mental abuse became insane to the point where we ended up separating. He became very suicidal. So he was unwell in himself. Look, don't get me wrong, it wasn't all bad.
Yeah.
There were good times, but those good times were reliant on him being happy and me being
unhappy.
Someone didn't even fucking know who I was. You know, my friends started to not even recognise who I was because I was so confident around my friends. I could tell them, you know, and I had people say to me, fuck, you can stand here and give it to these boys, and you know, some of them stand here as patch members, or some of them stand here as strong associates to domestic violence campaigns or sexual abuse campaigns. You can stand there and be real confident and tell them, yet behind the scenes, you know, you're being fake, because that's how I lived for such a long time. I wasn't me.
It's like a double life, eh?
It was, and I didn't even realise that. So we separated at the start of 2018. It was ugly. It was really ugly. I was living with my parents. I thought I'd lost everything. I thought it was all my fault. But at the same time, I had built these really good friendships and family relationships with people who weren't even whānau. Found confidence in myself. And for the next few months it was really rocky, and then I decided, the kid's dad was like, we can make a go of this, we can do this, and I was like, oh yeah, okay, because for a few months it was, no one can love you the way I love you, no one knows what you've been through if you bypass, only me. So I was like, oh yeah. So we went and bought a house together up in Levin. And I thought it was all roses. Mate, I thought I had it all.
Just to give it another shot, start fresh. Yeah.
But I thought I was living this amazing life. And then it started with the isolation of, you know, being financially isolated. Moving to live in was his way of isolating me from my whānau.
Yeah.
Taking me away from my parents, you know, because we didn't have the money to always be able to come back to Porirua.
When you talk about financial isolation, was he the breadwinner or?
Oh, hell no. No. Oh, look, I'm not one to be, you know, I've always held a very strong job.
Ethic. Yeah.
So to me, whoever brought in more, it didn't really matter. But at the same time, I was earning all this money and putting it into our lifestyle to try and build it. That I would leave myself nothing for me and leave everything to him, because I knew that's what would make him happy. And leave his money to him, you know.
Yeah.
And at this time I still didn't tell my parents. So we bought this house, you know, without the parents' support and everything. And then end of 2018, start of 2019, I was like, I can't do this. I can't do this. I started crying in the shower because I would go to work and there would be comments like, oh, who are you seeing? Who are you messaging? Oh, you know, you're not friends with those boys. Those boys are your, you know,
you're
fucking them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, hell no.
Yeah.
They're the last people I'd even look at. But no. And I just couldn't take it anymore. Honestly, no, it was just so mind controlling. Like, I was trying to go to work, put my twins into kindy at the time, my son into primary school, you know, manage living away from friends, not, you know, friends and family, not having that support.
Yeah.
And so I started exploring how to sell the house. And then I was told that I had to wait a certain period of time because of KiwiSaver. So that prolonged it all. But throughout this time, I started reaching out to people and kind of opening up about what was going on. And they were like, you can only do what's best for you. So when I said to him, no, we need to sell the house, I can't do this anymore. It got to the point where I was meant to be a bridesmaid for one of our really, really good friends. My friends would FaceTime me. Couldn't even talk to them on the phone because I was made out to be a bad mum because I wasn't showering my kids, or I wasn't in the kitchen cooking dinner, or the washing was sitting on the couch when he got home from work. You know, the house wasn't in order, or he didn't have my full attention.
So just really making you feel guilty.
Yeah. And still at this point I didn't realise I was experiencing DV. Because to me, he was making me feel like this is what a woman should do. Okay, then I'll make you fucking happy. I'll keep the house clean. I'll cook your food. I'll put food on the table, you know, whatever. Sold the house, moved back to Porirua, to a 1-bedroom flat. And it was, when it was good, it was good. When it was bad, it was bad. He didn't move back with us. Prior to us moving back, because of my job, we were sent away because of threats from a gang. And when we were on our way back from this trip from Auckland, he physically abused my son. And it was at that point that I made that decision. I'm not going to live this anymore. We were driving back from Auckland, we were arguing. Fucking he just turned around and hit my son right in the chest. And my son had seen our arguments, you know, was living this life. He would just stay in his room, go to school. He loved his dad so much, he still does. But he was sitting in between his twin siblings and that happened. And I went straight to the police. And he was K9'd once we pulled into live-in, and that's when I made the decision, I can't do this. So the house sold not long after.
Was that when he hit your son, was that a thing to, you know, because he was angry at your son, or was that a thing because he knew that would fuck with you?
It was both, but my son told him to leave me alone.
Oh, yeah.
Because he was always verbally abusing me. My son had enough. And he'd been exposed to it because he saw, you know, his father and I argue all the time. But we were driving back, and we were just coming back from Auckland, so we were not far from Taupo. I think we were almost at like Taiapi maybe. And I couldn't even drive. Like, that's how emotional I was. And even though he'd been physically violent with me before, I always stood up to him. Yeah. I was always scared. I always shit myself, like, you know. But at this point, when he laid his hands on my son, I was like, no, that's enough. Yeah. That's enough. You don't hurt my baby. He's been through enough. He's seen enough. So he was K9'd. And even after that, while we were still in live-in, there was still that manipulation. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do it. I even went to the cop station and was like, how can I drop these charges? Who does that? What kind of mum does that? And then I kicked myself for doing that because I meant to protect my son, you know, but I was protecting the man that hurt my son. Yeah. Like, what kind of woman had I become? So I was confused. Everything was fucking with my head, selling the house. So when we moved back to Porirua, and a good friend of ours, or mine, offered me a 1-bedroom flat literally this size. And I thought, fuck it. We'll do it. And we lived there for 8 months.
Just you and the kids?
Me and the 3 kids. And we rebuilt from scratch. It was hard because I got to a point where I started smoking so much pot. I'd still go to work. I'd get up in the morning, go to mahi. My kids would go to school. They still had everything they needed. They were happy, they were healthy, they were fed. I'd come home though, and I'd sit there and drink a box. I was never a drinker.
Yeah.
Just sit there and get drunk. And then started not exposing myself, but opening myself up to, because I was still vulnerable, opening myself up to wanting a male in my life to validate that love. Then it was after that 8 months, 5 to 6 months, that I actually realised, no, fuck girl, you got to pull your head in. Can't live here forever, you know. So I started working on myself, and that just started with not drinking, or cutting down a can or 2 a day, not smoking 5 joints, but having 1, you know. And then it got better.
Progress is progress.
Exactly. And reaching out to my whānau and opening up to them, and that it was at that point that my parents started to realise, okay, she's actually on her own, he's fucked off back to Australia, what's gone on? I was financially broke, you know. I'd sold my house, paid all this debt that, you know, we had sitting there, and taken a lot of money from the property that, you know, it's happened. But I lost everything apart from my kids. I even lost myself. And started to work on myself, put myself through, I don't know if you'd call them courses, but it was more so just learning things off pages, and how do you know that you're worthy of yourself? How do you know what strength is? It just started with that. You know, how do you be a single mum with 3 kids and you're broke, you know? And just started out by looking up things online and people who have experienced it, that kind of thing. And I started to find me again, and I was like, yes, I'm on, like, I wasn't where I wanted to be on my health journey necessarily because of what I had been through.
Yeah.
But I was like, damn girl, you're looking good. Like, yeah, you got it. You got booty. Yeah.
So you became your own cheerleader.
I became my own cheerleader, but my kids' own cheerleader, you know, because I'd not so much pushed them aside, because I still made sure they had their kai, went to school, saw their whānau.
But your focus was on keeping him happy.
Yeah. And then I finally realised, fuck, he's not here. What's the point in keeping him happy? He hasn't been here for months. He kept me happy.
So all that energy you could now pour into yourself, into the kids. Wouldn't you?
Yeah. So, and still at this point, I didn't even realise I'd been through that DV. But I also started to uncover a lot of childhood trauma. And my brother had been put into jail for some previous stuff that he'd been through, but it brought out a lot for me in terms of being sexually abused as an 8-year-old girl by a family member. And I think I was just trying to wrap my head around it all at the time, you know. I associated myself with my boys. a lot to do with my mum's family, who strongly affiliated with the gangs, and then dealing with the sexual abuse. And because I was never open about it with people, they all made assumptions that it was from this side of the family. No, it was from my Pākehā side. So dealing with that, and that I'd been through it, and then my brother going through what he was going through, I really struggled and started to deviate away from me finding my own worth and my own strength to now dealing with this trauma that had come back up. So I started to get back on track, and I reached out to the Māori Women's Refuge in Porirua, and they were like, yeah, we can help you, we can get you, help get you on your feet. Because I was like, I need to get out of this house. My twin boy was going mad. Like, he loves the outdoors. He can't keep, living like this. So I found myself a whare, 3 bedrooms, and it made me broke. Literally left with like $2 at the end of every pay. Because I was working full time, I wasn't entitled to anything from the government. The kid's father had fucked off to Australia. I didn't get child support. I didn't get working for families. Women's Refuge couldn't help me. Winds couldn't help me get into this new house. So I borrowed money and went broke to get into this house. And I did it, and then 3 weeks later it just got too much, and I overdosed. And my 12-year-old found me in the shower. And I think, I get emotional about it because a 12-year-old should never find their mum like that. But for him to have the strength that he had, he found me in the shower, and he took me to my room. Literally was crawling along the hallway. I sat on my bed, and that was it. I was gone. I can't remember anything from there. He called the ambulance, called my dad, and that day I lost my kids. I got put into hospital. They made me feel like I was a lunatic, that I was a druggie, because at that time, I admit, I was selling drugs to make a living. I was a single mum, government didn't want to help me. And remember waking up that next day. This was 27th of December, 2019. So I'd gone through this journey of finding myself and my own strength, and then hitting rock bottom again. I woke up that day and I was like, I've experienced domestic violence. This is when it all came up. This is why I've done this to myself. And that only came about because people were in there, and I'm fucking on reversals and out of my brain, security guards standing outside my room. I thought I'd got in my car and hurt somebody, or, but all these emotions and feelings, and at the time what I thought was feelings and emotions, but I was just becoming aware of what I'd been through all these years. And so I lost my kids. Oranga Tamariki walked into the room. 2 Pākehā ladies walked in with a clipboard. She was like, "Are you Bronwyn?" And I was like, "Yes." And she was like, "How many kids do you have?" "Why? Who are you? Who's going to look after your kids?" So "My kids are safe. You don't need to." "No, they're not with a mother like you." Shot down straight away. The system just made me feel like I was nothing. That I was this failure. Not only did I think I was already a failure to my parents, now the system made me feel like a failure, even though I was getting up and working. providing for my kids, trying my best. You know, I reached out for help. They weren't there. Months beforehand. Reached out to work and income for mental illness help. They weren't there. So they said to me that they wanted to take my kids off me. And if I couldn't find anyone within 2 hours, that they would be uplifting my kids. So for me to hear that after being brought up in a home where that never happened and trying my best to hold on to what I had left after losing my house, all my furniture, my life, giving up work for 3 months. I rang my boss a couple of days later. I took 3 months off work, mental health leave. My parents offered to take my kids. Oranga Tamariki agreed after having to do all their fucking checks. You know, even though you got two straight up, you know, the most straightest Pākehā person in Porirua, you know, they agreed to let my parents look after the kids. I came out of hospital and I did, I had a cousin who I'm still very close with to this day, and he came in and moved in with me. I couldn't get out of bed. That's how depressed I was. Lost, lonely. But deep down I knew I had the strength. And I knew I could find it. But I was like, fuck, it's like looking for a needle in a haystack.
Yeah.
Where the fuck do you find that strength from? And then it was replaying all of these memories of being abused physically. Oh, I'm not going to find anyone. Going through those motions, opening my curtains was my first step. You know, getting up and making my coffee was the next. So every day I tried to do something extra.
Yeah, a little bit
you
more
know,
than you did.
A little bit more than the day before. Being a better version, and that's one thing I'm strong about on today. Is tomorrow, I'll worry about tomorrow when tomorrow comes, but today I can proudly say that I was a better version of me than I was yesterday.
Yeah, hard.
So, and I just started to rebuild myself, and then I found me, even though that probably 12 months before I'd found me, I'd kind of gone back downhill, and just found this happiness. Like, I didn't care that I was broke, you know. Started opening up to my parents more because they had my kids, telling my dad that I was financially struck, and that was a lot of my worries for my kids, you know, not being able to provide to them, having to make ends meet week to week, and putting myself out there with my friends more, you know, bringing my friends over more, talking about what I'd been through more. But the biggest thing was accepting that I had experienced what I had experienced.
Yep, hard out.
And not living in denial. Not living in denial that I had been sexually abused, you know, and that I had been through domestic violence, and I was this, what people look at as this white girl from Porirua who grew up in a really stable home, has a good job. That was all shit. Because on the face of it, it was not who I was or what I experienced. And then found me, and just this confidence just grew. You know, I could stand my ground and tell people what I thought of them, or, you know, stand my ground at work, be a voice for those who couldn't necessarily be a voice, be a good mum to my kids, If people judged me, cool, that's on you, bro. What you think of me means nothing to me. Yes, you're allowed an opinion.
But keep it to yourself.
Keep it to yourself. Yeah. What people, had to say on social media about me, about my children's dad, about my life. Kudos, bro, but you didn't never wear my shoes. Like, I don't care what you have to say.
So what was it like moving into your your next relationship? What?
I think when I first met him, it was I kept my guard up a lot.
Yeah, understandable.
Yeah.
Aye. This is your partner you're with now? Yeah.
Yeah. Truly believe that this man is my soulmate, and we've been together 18 months. When I first met him, I was not scared because I knew who I was.
Yeah.
I knew that only I could make myself happy. But it was, how do I open up my life, and will this person be accepting of my whānau, my friends, the people I love, not judging, what I'd been through. And when we do experience things like, fuck, is that going to get thrown back in my face? Only because for so long I'd had things thrown in my face, so that was just my natural reaction. But hit it off, able to talk about anything, and there was no judgment. But obviously without sharing too much, because he's got his own journey, which is incredible, and I'll always cherish it and value his journey. But he just blew me away, like still blows me away to this day. It's not perfect, nothing's perfect.
Yeah, hard.
But it's our perfect.
Yeah, love
that. He loves my kids like they're his own. I love his son like his son's my own. I won't lie though, when we have been challenged, I wouldn't say we've actually never argued between us. It's always been, because we're a blended family, how we raise our kids and the rules we have at home or outside the home. There's been challenges, and
but that's natural, I reckon, to blended families. You've got your morals, your values, and trying to negotiate and work and think, how can we fucking do this together? I know, because I'm going through the same thing. Yeah,
exactly. And that's why and everyone experiences it differently. Yeah. And as well, when you've got other households involved, and other parenting styles. And I guess for me, one of my biggest things as well is I'm not intimidated by anyone else, but when it comes to my family, if you threaten my family's happiness, that's when I kind of start to open up a bit in terms of voicing my opinions on other people. Little things though, like if I wanted to go out for dinner with the girls, something so little that people are like, oh yeah, most of my friends like, oh, I'm going out with the girls or whatever. For me, that was big. Yeah. Because I could never do that without coming home and either getting a hiding. Yeah. Or being made to feel like I was the worst mum. But I remember the first night, I said to him, all good if, he's like, yeah. Like, but all the kids, that's alright. Like, in my head, I'm like, fuck. Yeah. Okay.
There's that little fear, like, fuck, is this going to be a repeat? What's his reaction going to be like? And then when it comes back and it's nothing like, I already know this from what the fuck I've been through in my, my past. And then I'll say that, and he's like, "Oh no, fuck, go have a good night." That's
Yeah.
all, you know. And I'm like, "What the fuck?"
Exactly, and
Because foreign.
it's foreign land.
Yeah.
And you just don't know what. Even coming home, I'm like, what am I gonna, like, am I gonna get you went out and had a good night kind of thing? But no, I walked at the door and it was like, oh, you're home already, love. It's like, yeah. Why did you come home so early? Oh, fuck.
Well, I'll go back out then now.
Yeah. Like, oh. So,
Yeah.
little things like that. Opening up about my past to him, becoming vulnerable was really, really hard. But one thing I always have to remember is, he's always said, and even to my kids, and I think that's one thing that was really hard for me is I believe that when I was with my ex-husband, I stayed with him because he was the father to my children. Yes, I thought it was love, but my partner is very clear in saying, I'm here because I love your mum,
Yeah.
And for me, it wasn't beneficial love. It's unconditional, and I can be me, he can be him, and just growing together, but on our own journeys as well.
See, that's why I think, when you said I wouldn't change anything, remember in the start when you said I wouldn't change what I've been through, and I feel the same, because now that I've found, and you probably can relate, we've found this true love.
Yeah.
And we've been through that, so we know what the fuck is good and what's not good.
Yeah.
We recognise. And if we didn't go through that, we wouldn't have anything to fucking compare it to,
Exactly. But even when you do go, I think when you do enter a new relationship, because there are people who go through this stuff and they hold together. And cool, I think that's beautiful, but it's not made for everyone. So I think when you come into a new relationship and you are challenged in that relationship, you kind of build a wall faster. You're like, oh, fuck. So you either, this is where we know we've grown as people, because you either choose to shut down or be like, nah, fuck. Nah, bro.
Yeah.
I'm not dealing with this see you later kind of buzz. And it's coming back to a middle ground and choosing, no, I'm not going to verbally respond. I'm not going to, if you're having a disagreement or being challenged, you step back and you choose not to say anything. Hear them out. Listen to understand, don't listen to respond. That's one thing I've chosen. And also waking up every day is, okay, I've woken up, yes, I'm pregnant and over this shit, like over having to deal with mind games and things like that, back then.
Yeah.
But today I know I can wake up and be like, no, fuck, I'm going to go through this way today. I'm going to be stoked, I'm going to be happy, I'm going to be grateful for everything I have, the fact that I've even woken up today. So that's the difference of where I was, is I'd wake up and be like, oh, I've got to deal with this today. Whereas now, I wake up and go, fuck, cool, what's today going to bring? Yeah.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to share before we close this up?
No, just know that,
if there's a lady, that could be watching that was in your situation, what's something you could...
I know it's hard to talk to people, and I know that people are out there and they've probably got friends saying you can talk about it. People share stuff and say, I'm only a phone call away, my door's always open, the jug's always on. But when you're in that space, you don't fuck about any of that. You know, you're oblivious to any of that going on around you. Just take a minute for yourself and sit down and be honest to yourself with where you are. And if you feel in that moment that you need to ring someone and tell them, or write it down and put it in someone's letterbox or in their door, or ring the cops, or tell your mum, you do whatever you feel in that moment to share that message. But if you're not ready to share that with anybody, then that's where you are. You know, it's easy enough for me to sit here and go tell someone.
Yeah, hard.
But when you're in that space, you don't fuck about anyone. You know, because you don't know where you're at. Yeah. So all I can say is just feel your emotions. You know, feel where you are. Be aware of where your mind's at. Don't feed into...
Because I feel like sometimes you might not have the strength right now. Like, I know there was a lot of times and I was like, nah, I can't do it. I can't fucking do it. I can't leave. I can't do this. I can't. Yeah. But then I finally got to a stage where I was like, oh, bro, I'm fucking doing it. I don't give a fuck if I walk out of here and sleep in a box. Yeah. That's what I'm going to do because I've had enough. You find that strength, you just get to that point.
Yeah. But until you find that strength and that want to do something, you can't do anything. You know, even if I think for me, my biggest breaking point was I sat there on Christmas Day in 2019 before my overdose, and I took a video of myself and I deleted it. I put it on Facebook. And it was actually some of your really close supporters that messaged me at the time. You know, Auntie Ro and Auntie Di. And they were like, you got this. You know, they didn't tell me what to do. They didn't tell me who to go to. They just told me I had the strength. And that's all I can say to people is you got the strength.
Yeah, man.
You got the strength to get through it. How you deal with it is how you deal with it, because I've dealt with it my way. But you've got the strength to do it. You just have to know that tapping out is not an option. Yeah. Don't do that. You know, fuck yeah, that's easy enough to say, but you got the strength to get through anything.
That's a long-term solution to a short-term problem.
Because it never goes away. Hey, I still have everything in here, but I know how to deal with it and cope with it. And not every day is a good day, but I know that I can get through every day with the people I've got around me who love me. And I don't have to live with domestic violence. I don't have to live with, you know, reliving my abuse. I can be happy in the here and now. And give a big fat fuck you to everyone that didn't, you know, and be honest with my parents about it.
Yeah, hard out.
Yeah.
Fucking me, man. Proud as of you.
Yeah.
Just want to say a massive thank you for sharing your story with us today. And we wish you nothing but the best.
Thank you. You too. And everyone else.